Welcome. This is Mark McAdoo from SourcEdge. Our thought leadership series, Health Plans Technically Speaking, brings this to a discussion in claims systems modernization with Rusty Wyrick, VP and CIO from CommunityCare of Oklahoma, a SourcEdge customer. Welcome, Rusty.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. We're excited to have a discussion about some major projects that you performed with CommunityCare of Oklahoma, CCOK. First, though, I thought we could jump right in and get a little bit about your background, Rusty. You have a fascinating background in terms of working in multiple industries before transitioning over to healthcare. Thought maybe for the audience, if you could share a little bit about your background before joining CommunityCare.
Sure, absolutely. So I spent the very first part of my career working in the energy sector for Citgo Petroleum. From there, I moved on to the telecom industry and spent about 8 years there working for various companies, nationally recognized institutions. And then from there, kind of got my first start into healthcare at an analytics software company, building analytical software for third-party administrators and self-funded plans. Sold almost exclusively to self-funded groups. It was a great experience, a chance to kind of grow into leadership roles. And experiment with that. And then from there, moved on to be the CTO for CareATC, which is an on-site clinic company. Had about 100 plus clinics nationally, had a chance to really go through and be a tech-enabled company from that perspective. And then finally moving on into the payer space here at CCOK.
Well, that's a great background, Rusty. And what I find so interesting about your background is that you also sort of was the lead technology executive for a software company, and you bring to CommunityCare of Oklahoma as CIO, kind of that vendor software perspective. Can you share a little bit about how that's been valuable in your role as the CIO of CommunityCare of Oklahoma?
Yeah, certainly. Still today, I probably consider myself a software engineer at heart. It's kind of one of those things we all figure out what we're good at. Software development was kind of my thing. So I was a software engineer for probably 12 to 13 years before I took on a managerial role. But certainly software is kind of in my blood. Just what I love to do, love to build things. So it's been really crucial here. Different places I've worked kind of always brought that experience as well, instead of always just going with a third party. Certainly build versus buy is a real thing for us. And in a lot of cases, prefer to build it from a cost standpoint and an IP standpoint as well.
Interesting. That's a great background. So tell us a little bit about CommunityCare of Oklahoma. CCOK has been rated the top health plan in Oklahoma since 2006 every year. Can you share with us a little bit about the CCOK and the business you're in and the health plan services that you provide to your members?
Sure, absolutely. CommunityCare is based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're actually Oklahoma's largest locally owned health plan. Been in business for getting close to 30 years at this point. Primarily 3 lines of business, ACA, Medicare, and then small and large group commercial. Currently serving about 125,000 members in the state.
Great. Well, that sounds great. So let's really sort of jump right into the modernization project of your claim system. So tell us a little bit about what you encountered when you first joined as CIO in 2019 at CCOK. What was the claim system environment, and what key decisions did you have to make sort of moving forward?
Sure. So kind of coming in with my background, certainly working for a software company, innovation was kind of key to what we did, constantly being cutting edge in terms of what we're building and developing. And so moving into the payer space is a little bit of an adjustment. In a lot of cases, systems, I'd say this is kind of across the board for a lot of health plans. Systems are antiquated, not up to date, not efficient from a cost standpoint or an operations standpoint at all. And that's very much the case here. While the systems have been in place for probably 15 to 20 years in most cases, they were very, very stable, but just not systems that were highly innovative and then certainly nearing end of life, which creates a problem for me as the CIO. So kind of walking in, identified a few things initially that just realized we had to change very quickly. One of those being our data center was an on-premise data center running very antiquated equipment. We were using the Amisys adjudication system. System's working well here at CommunityCare. It's very, very customized in terms of surround code that exists for it. I think in total, we probably have 450 different apps that have kind of been built on top of it. But given the on-premise data center where we were using HPUX proprietary equipment, For us, it was really important to go through and figure out long-term, where should community care be from an on-premise versus cloud perspective. And that was really kind of the key point is, do we remain on-prem and go on from there, or do we go ahead and take the leap and move to a cloud-based platform? After a lot of discussions, cost estimation for the next 5 years to figure out where we'd want to land, we decided to go with Microsoft Azure as our cloud-based platform. A little bit scary at the beginning, just not knowing in terms of, hey, once this all gets moved over, did we actually get the price estimates fairly close? From a budgeting perspective, all those things are put into place as part of this. And for us, certainly the ability to move to the cloud as opposed to going through and making a multi-million-dollar investment on new hardware plus upgrading everything, including the adjudication system, would have been very difficult. So we made the hard decision to say, hey, we believe that the cloud is where things are going for us. Certainly from a cost perspective, being able to make it more of a subscription type model from an expense perspective was really key for us. And so given that most of those systems were, again, proprietary and most everything on HPUX from our adjudication platform, decided to make that switch to Linux on Azure.
Well, that sounds like certainly a massive undertaking as you sort of launch your career as the CIO of CCOK. Tell us a little bit about how you took this massive project, and I know it was the number one priority within the company from an IT perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about the discussions you had with your leadership team and at a board level in terms of the visibility and the magnitude of this project?
Sure. So in terms of the adjudication system, obviously that's the one system that most people in the organization are very familiar with. And it's the one system that pretty much everybody here spends their day working in. So anytime we talk about upgrading the adjudication system or that platform, it's a very, very sensitive topic. They've done these before 2 or 3 times, I believe, in the company's history. This time, however, they let it go for, I think, 6 or 7 years. There were 2 to 3 versions behind on the version of Amisys we needed to be on. And so again, it became certainly a much larger project than expected. We had to go through and figure out, hey, do we go ahead and jump versions? Do we do upgrade after upgrade until to the current version? So a lot of those things had to take place. And then, of course, with our board letting them know, here's the importance of what we're doing. For community care, again, making big changes like upgrading the adjudication system and then moving from an on-premise data center to cloud-based certainly had a lot of visibility. The board was highly involved and the company was as well.
That sounds like you did a phenomenal job of sort of positioning the magnitude of the project and didn't work around the edges of the project, but sort of jumped in at high level and recognized what were the key factors in moving forward to modernize your entire environment. And as I look at the project, it sort of breaks down into a couple major components. Number one, you have to upgrade your Amisys claim system to the current version. Number two, there's some underlying database technology in your Oracle environment that simultaneously needs to be upgraded in order to support your cloud-based initiative. Number three, there's hardware migration component. And then I guess lastly, moving to the cloud, all at the same time, all within the same project. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you pulled that whole project together and how you came up with the timeframes to execute the plan?
Yes, I think timeframes are always a big issue for us. We want to kind of target somewhere in the 18-month to 24-month area. Certainly for us, 18 months is better than 24. I guess the one kind of good thing starting out, the one advantage that we did have is the ability to build this out in our cloud-based environment entirely separate from what we're doing here with the on-premise data center we had. Also, we had to make sure that the people who were here maintaining the system, keeping the lights on, that process could happen alongside the move and the migration forward. And so for us, figuring out, from an internal resource perspective, how many people do we need? How do we augment our staff and support this whole operation? Again, we didn't have people on the sidelines sitting there waiting to work on an upgrade. We had people who were here to keep the lights on and maintain the current system. And so that's kind of where SourcEdge came in and working with Mark and company to figure out, let's get the resources in place that we need in order to pull this off. Obviously, it was a very big project for us, and for 18 months was really the focus of everything we did here in IT in terms of migrating that as well. You mentioned Oracle, some of the hardware stuff, moving from the HPUX proprietary system over to Linux. completely and entirely different in terms of Amisys clients. We'd looked out there to see what our clients doing. There's a hosted model, and then there's what they call the turnkey model. The turnkey model is basically us buying the software and then managing it from that point on. Given that a lot of other health plans talked to them, nobody had converted to do more of a cloud-based approach. And so CommunityCare was actually the first Amisys client to go through and decide to make the migration, the successful migration to the cloud, and then move from the HPUX over to Red Hat Linux, which has been really, really good for us. And certainly Linux on Azure works well post, conversion. And a little farther down the road, we're a year past that now, certainly seeing some performance increases as well as the cost savings that we'd expected going into it.
That's interesting. You mentioned performance improvements. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the results from this massive project? So again, just to recap, upgrading Amisys to multiple versions to the current release, upgrading Oracle to the 19T version or to the Oracle Cloud environment, migrating to Azure, all of that in an 18-month time frame. What have been some of the performance benefits from this project?
Yeah, I'd say just in terms of the overall equipment, actual metal base hardware, just moving over to similarly sized equipment on Azure, just the change in architecture from the processor perspective between when these HPUX machines were created to what we have now. We've seen some significant performance improvements with that. Also, the ability for us to really kind of scale at will on Azure has been really important in terms of size, whatever it may be, storage, RAM, anything else. The ability to go through now and simply click a button and move that around has been really key for us. We've also seen a lot of savings. We don't necessarily need to run our systems 24/7, depending on which ones they are. Certainly the surrounding components surrounding Amisys. And so being on Azure, the ability for us to turn things up, turn things down has certainly been a key consideration and a cost savings for us. In addition, we've started booking or reserving time on Azure. And so we've seen certainly some reduced costs there as we're going through and figuring out, hey, this is exactly what it's going to take for us to run the systems for the next 6 to 12 months, and then reserving that hardware. I'd say another one of the really big benefits that I've seen in addition to performance, and we're actually doing some studies now to kind of figure out from a performance perspective, what's the percentage increase, and we're working on that currently. But for us and for me, disaster recovery is always key. Looking at things like our return point objective and our return to operations ability, having the ability to take a cloud data center, and we've actually now gone through post-conversion and we've replicated that data center. So we have 2 primary data center locations, both cloud-based, both in Azure. And for us, we've had a new considerable advantage in the fact that if something does happen to one of our DCs, there's a fully redundant data center back up there and running as well. That's something we did not have previously, given we had just an on-premise data center here. We've actually gone through and done tests with that, done failovers to make sure that all works. And so from a business continuity perspective, that's really been a huge win for us, is the ability to, if there is an issue, to go through and recover from it. Our return to operations objective prior to this project, we're probably looking at months in terms of what it would take in the case of a disaster to recover. Now we're looking at certainly probably less than a week, and right now targeting probably 2 to 3 days to make the company fully refunctional if we did lose the data center.
Incredible results. What has been the feedback? You and I have had this discussion a little bit from your executive committee at a board level. I know there was tremendous visibility on this project. You were able to deliver this entire project on time, on budget. And what has been the reaction from the leadership team?
Yeah, so a lot of excitement at the leadership level. Anytime you're changing such a core system to your organization, I think board, executive team, all very concerned with how that goes off. Our executive team had worked for other payers and understood that, during an adjudication system conversion or a significant upgrade, it's always a high risk type of change. I'd say we really took our time in terms of knowing what was going to happen. Again, being able to run it in the cloud and on premise at the same time for about a month, closer to the actual cutover, certainly helped our situation there. Of course, we were all nervous going into it. You do what you can, plan the best you can, and then from there, just take it and run with it. I would say post-migration, I think one of the biggest surprises is coming in. I think we started on Thursday evening and ran through the weekend. As Monday morning walked in, most people sat down at their desk, and aside from the icons being different on their desktop or being slightly modified, some people ask us, hey, did we actually do this or not? And so it was super smooth in terms of the ability to go through, have everything prepped, turned on, would backed up the existing system, restored it to the cloud, and we're kind of off to the races. So from the executive team standpoint, super smooth conversion, really no hiccups in terms of anything big that happened. There were obviously smaller issues that popped up from time to time, especially like with things like printing, things like that. But overall, we converted that weekend, started Monday morning, and before the end of that week, we're doing billing, capitation, everything else we would normally do had gone on without a hitch. So overall, super successful project, and was happy to be involved in it.
Incredible results. It certainly, you make it sound easy, but I know it wasn't. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of collaboration between your team and SourcEdge? And I know you take great pride in your team, the skill set within your team, and how you formed a sort of collaborative environment between SourcEdge and the CCOK IT team and also the business team, such that at the end of the day, when this project was completed, your team was completely up to speed, and you are now in a position to control your own destiny.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we didn't want to happen is bring in some consultants to help us convert. The conversion's done. They kind of walk away. And then also having the previous experience of working with Amisys, knowing a lot of the surround code, how it works, how that interfaces with the adjudication system was really key. And so for us, working with SourcEdge, being able to have those resources that were incredibly difficult for us to find, certainly with previous experience doing Amisys upgrades, things like that, was really crucial to have you guys on board to help us with that. We really try to do everything we do here as a team effort. We brought contractors in from your organization, Mark, and really kind of had those people become directly involved with the team. We kind of treat contractors as employees, had those people participate in staff meetings, sit and work alongside our team here, involved in our stand-ups and everything else. And again, for us, it was the ability to convert this, move this around, code, everything else, and then also kind of train our team as we went along so that once the project was done, we can kind of move on our own. So overall, very successful effort. The teams are very engaged. Your team has done this a number of times, and so that was really crucial for us in terms of that past experience in order to make this all go off without a hitch.
That's great. Yeah, I can attest to the fact that it was such a collaborative team environment. Let's look ahead a little bit now that you've got your new platform modernized in place in the cloud. You're on the current version of Amisys. We didn't really get into too much detail around the surround code, but that was another complexity where CCOK has developed a number of different surround code applications, I believe over 300, that also had to be remediated as part of this project so that they work seamlessly with the new version of Amisys. But I think more importantly, if you could talk to us about where this positions you for the future and your vision of how you're building key functionality and innovating new technology around your core claims adjudication system.
So now that the system's upgraded, running in the cloud, running on Azure, there's a lot of things we can benefit from in terms of just the basic Azure platform, what it provides, in addition to all the surround code that's been created previously. I'll give you one example. If you're not familiar with FHIR, FHIR, Fast Healthcare Interoperability, the ability for us to go through with one of our vendors that requested we turn up a FHIR server to work with them for a new care management platform. One of the nice things about Azure is that functionality is built in. And so we didn't have to go through and stand up a server, install the supporting applications to make it work. It was a few clicks again in the Azure cloud, and we've got our FHIR server turned up. Also, in addition to that, once the surround code conversion was done, what we're doing is actually leaving the COBOL system in place and a lot of that surround code. However, all of our new development are on much newer technologies, Microsoft shops, everything's ASP.NET here. But really what we've done is taken and started building a whole API layer on top of the Amisys database and all the other systems that are kind of encompassed here. And for us, it's crucial to leave the adjudication system as pristine as possible or unchanged as possible in order to reduce maintenance and then do all the innovative components we want to do kind of outside of that system, and then also as part of building our own intellectual property in relation to that. And so now that we've got this done, this major hurdle accomplished, we're looking at new things. We've actually started development on CommunityCare's first mobile app, which we're very excited about. And then we're also building new employer and member portals that will sit on top of Amisys and all these associated systems that we've now created. So it's really, really key for us to do kind of things from the API-driven approach and make things as accessible as possible, which allows us to innovate and then also allows us to certainly integrate much quicker with third parties.
That's great. What it sounds to me as if you are now using Amisys and the claims system for what it does best, and it does a terrific job for CCOK and adjudicating claims, but building an API layer that gives you the flexibility to build your own innovative technology surrounding Amisys and having the flexibility to innovate and differentiate CCOK in the market.
Absolutely. It's certainly been a big benefit for us.
That's great. Well, Rusty, I can't thank you enough for joining us. The full case study for CCOK with SourcEdge is available at SourcEdge's website at sourceedge.com. And again, I'd like to thank Rusty very much for joining us this morning to talk about the claims modernization project at CCOK. Thank you very much, Rusty.
Thanks, Mark.